All eyes are on who qualifies for AFCON 2023, which kicks off in Cote d'Ivoire on January 13th, 2024, and the Gambia is no exception. Francois Albert Amisha is a former Minister of Sports, Mayor of Trècheville for many years, and now entrusted the role of Chairman of the Organizing Committee of CAN 2023, known as Cote.
Je dois remercier la télévision gambienne qui nous donne l'occasion de faire le point sur les préparatifs de la 34e.
It was in 2014 that Ivory Coast obtained the right to organize this prestigious event awaited by the entire African continent. In 2017, the government set up an organizing committee for the African Cup of Nations. Since 2021, I have been the chairman of the committee. I can tell you that in a few months, a few weeks before January 2024, Ivory Coast can say that it is ready to welcome the 24 qualified teams in the 6 venues that are planned. Today, at the level of sports infrastructure, we have practically finished everything. Logically, at the end of June, we should hand over all infrastructure to the African Football Confederation. There are 4 training grounds in our plan, and with the 2, the Ivory Coast is ready. At the level of accommodation, efforts are made to create the best conditions for not only the teams or the official delegations, not only CAF, but all the viewers, the supporters, and all the lovers of African football who would love to come to Ivory Coast for this great event. At the level of health infrastructure, the government has incurred big expenses and big sacrifices have also been made. Civilian hospitals have been upgraded, and those in Korogo, Bouaké, Yamoussoukro, San Pedro and Abidjan are in their final phase. There is also a program of road accessibility. The coast, which is in a delicate state, today does honor to the Ivory Coast, since we can leave from Abidjan to San Pedro in less than 4 hours. The Abidjan-Yamoussoukro highway has already been done. We have finished the Yamoussoukro-Tibassou section, and soon the Tchebisu-Bouaké section will be released to traffic. Korogo and San Pedro will see their airports upgraded. We will have new terminals, which will also be up to standard for the event. So we can say that the combination of the different ministerial departments, which work in close collaboration with organizing committee and under the supervision of the Prime Minister, head of government, all preparations are ready, and the Ivory Coast can say that it is waiting for football lovers who will not be disappointed to make the trip.
Les amoureux du football qui ne seront pas déçus d'effectuer le déplacement ici. Alors, pour nous, il était important de se repositionner.
I must say that language is not a barrier. We ourselves are surrounded by Ghana next door and Liberia, with whom we have very good relations. But Ivory Coast and Gambia have had a good relationship for a long time. If the Ivorian government confirms an honorary consul in Banjul, I believe that it is for the strengthening of its relations, and these must not only be limited to economic, agricultural, mining, or at the industrial level. It must also extend to the level of sports. Today, the Ivory Coast is a member of ECOWAS, just like the Gambia. And I believe that today in Africa, we must overcome all of the language barrier to create a true cooperation of partnership. And as regards sports, There is only one language. It is the practice of sport. Sports? There is only one language. It is the practice of sport. There is only one language. It is.
La Côte d'Ivoire a connu une période difficile et alors je dois dire que la langue n'est pas une barrière. Nous-mêmes nous sommes entourés.
I must say, the practice of sports is universal, and the infrastructure must meet a certain standard. I think that if Africa wants to be up to the big events, it needs requisite infrastructures. In 2010, South Africa organized the World Cup because it had adequate infrastructure. But we can have more than one country co-hosting. Africa, for example, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria can come organize the World Cup. But it takes West African states around Ivory Coast, Senegal, Benin, and other countries like the Gambia, Togo, or Ghana to develop their infrastructure so that we can organize major events. Qatar has just shown us a demonstration. We can also do it in Africa.
C'est la pratique du sport. La Coupe d'Afrique des Nations est le troisième plus grand événement sportif du monde.
Third biggest sporting event in the world after the World Cup. And after the Olympic Games, it is the African Cup of Nations that attracts the maximum number of spectators, more than the European Cup. Therefore, the Ivory Coast is at the crossroads. The Ivory Coast, which is the country of hospitality. The Ivory Coast, which is a land with open arms, is looking forward to receiving a great number of people. We forecast nearly 1,500,000 people who will come. Nearly 180 countries will follow the television broadcast. And we really wish that, in addition to the 24 countries which will qualify, we pray for the Gambia to be part of them. However, spectators, nationals of countries who did not qualify can come and enjoy this big event. This is an opportunity for me to say that sports is a factor of cohesion and Africa needs unity. Africa needs to find itself. African youths especially, since they are the future of the continent, we therefore invite all African youths in love with football, sports in general, to make arrangements to be in Ivory Coast.
La jeunesse africaine surtout, puisque c'est elle l'avenir du continent, et nous invitons donc toute la jeunesse. Alors, je dois dire que la pratique du sport est universelle.
I must say the practice of sports is universal and the infrastructure must meet a certain standard. I think that if Africa wants to be up to the big events, it needs the requisite infrastructures. In 2010, South Africa organized the World Cup because it had adequate infrastructure. But we can have more than one country co-hosting. In North Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria can come together to organize the World Cup, but it takes West African states around Ivory Coast, Senegal, Benin, and other countries like the Gambia, Togo, or Ghana to develop their infrastructure so that we can organize major events. Qatar has just shown us a demonstration. We can also do it in Africa, and that is why I hope that African countries, African governments will make the effort to develop sports infrastructures. our youth to find means of fulfillment, but it also allows us to welcome the whole world. And this is the vocation of Africa.
Parce que ça permet non seulement à notre jeunesse de trouver des moyens.
Cote d'Ivoire has been repositioning itself, and a niche in sports on the African continent is within the priority list. It recently played host to several sporting disciplines and has the full support of the government of President Alassane Ouattara. Football is on the lips of every Ivorian as they look forward to the Africa Cup of Nations. Veterans like Aka Kwame reminisce the finals of AFCON 1992 and look forward to their country's second hosting of the tournament.
La Coupe d'Afrique en 92 au Sénégal.
We are the former players who won the African Cup in 1992 in Senegal. It is immense joy for us to remember when we won this cup for Ivory Coast. Really, I thank the President of the Republic, the entire government, the Ivorian Football Federation and the whole organization. Cote d'Ivoire did organize the African Cup of Nations in 1984 during the time of President Houphouët-Boigny, and we lost that year. President Alassane Ouattara has decided, with the support of CAF, to make this Cup of Nations a success, because it is very important for the Ivorians to support this Cup of Nations, because it goes straight to our hearts. In 1984, we failed to win it. However, 2023, the President is using all means available because it will be a Cup of Nations that we will never see in Africa.
En Côte d'Ivoire.
Veteran Ivorian international footballer Omar Ben Salah believes that Cote d'Ivoire will come up with the best Cup of Nations, looking at the way the government is handling things.
Omar Ben Salah, voilà, ancien international ivoirien.
My name is Omar Ben Salah, former Ivory Coast international. I played in Ivory Coast at the Abidjan Stadium for several years before leaving for France. I did 3 years in Set, 3 years in Vion, and 3 years in Oman. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because it makes us happy to see a fellow Gambian journalist in front of us to ask about the Africa Cup of Nations, which will be organized in 2023. It is an immense joy for us Ivorians to host the Africa Cup of Nations 2023. As my brother and friend Oham had said, we organized the tournament in 1984. We lost in the first round. This year, thank God, President Alassane Ouattara has done everything to organize the African Cup of Nations 2023. I think it will go down to football history. Because the way we are organizing it, it will be the best Cup of Nations ever organized in Africa. As my brother has also said, our thanks goes to the Ivory Coast Football Federation. All Ivorians are involved. So we will make sure that this tournament is a success in Africa and that it will remain in the annals of African football. Thank you to the President of the Republic, Alassane Ouattara, for everything he is doing to ensure that this CHAN is ready in 2023.
Tout le monde est impliqué. Tous les Ivoiriens sont impliqués.
The chairperson of the organizing committee of the Africa Cup of Nations, Francois Albert Amisha, conscious of the importance of the tournament, is confident that this edition will be one of the best. He is optimistic that other countries in Africa will emulate Cote d'Ivoire and improve their infrastructures to the required standard.